This is Lemon's Car Spotting. You post to Instagram with the hashtag Lemon's Car Spotting. We pick the hooptiest.
They are so incredibly terrible.
And which one we want to become a real Lemons build.
It does car-like things. We've been pushing for one of those in Lemons too, and those are very affordable.
Hey, welcome to Lemon's Car Spotting right here on the 24 Hours of Lemons YouTube channel. I am Nick. That's Eric. Just a couple of housekeeping items to get through before we get to the show. First of all, people have asked, how do you post to Lemon's Car Spotting if you don't have an Instagram account? Unfortunately, there isn't a way to do that right now. We have plenty to choose from that's out there on Instagram. So if you don't have an Instagram, I don't know what to tell you. Certainly, there is no rule against creating your own Instagram account that only has Lemon's Car Spotting images on it. But for now, we're only pulling the images from Instagram.
Yep. Another thing, we got a lot of comments talking about how a lot of our posts were coming from one person or one or two different posters. A couple quick solutions to that. One is post your own stuff. We'll pick it up. And the second one is we kind of worked our way through. We've got enough people posting now that we think we have a lot more variety in store for you guys. So,
yeah, that's due to the extreme popularity of this program.
That's right.
Another issue, we talk a lot about Lemons Tech, of course, because the grand prize of this show is being the car that we select to turn into a real Lemons race build. One thing that's popped up, when we talk about big 3/4 ton, 1 ton, 4x4 trucks, we often talk about the fact that they're really over our 4,200 pound weight cap and probably wouldn't be granted a waiver. Whereas full-size cars like Lincolns and Cadillacs often do get the waiver. Some people have voiced some lack of understanding of why those two things are happening. And one of the things somebody pointed out, what's the difference between a Lincoln Continental and a Suburban that's been lowered and greatly weight reduced? It's the weight reduction that's really the problem, because we also have a rule that you cannot significantly modify the existing structure, especially crash structure of your vehicle. So those two things for a Suburban are working at cross purposes. We'd love to see one get down to Lemon's race weight, but in order to do that, you have to Swiss cheese it so much that it violates the don't modify the structure rule.
And one last thing, got some comments on the quality of video from our webcams. So just wanted to say, you guys get what you pay for, and your refund check is on the way for that. So without further ado, let's get into Lemon's Car Spotting.
Yes, as you know, we have two winners every week. The Hooptiest, self-explanatory, and the Lemons Build, which is the car we want to see turn into a real Lemons race car. And to do that, we have our proprietary selection process. Eric, you will be selecting this week. You've got your Lemons Build. You've got your Hooptiest. Close your eyes. Tell me when to stop.
Stop.
That's the Hooptiest. Eric, you're doing the Hooptiest. I'm doing the Lemons Build. And with that, let us get into it. Okie dokie. Oh, man. I think there's been kind of a lot of these lately on this channel, don't you?
Yeah, the Fox body, early Fox body. Have there been a lot of Zephyrs or just these Fairmont Zephyr?
Well,
I don't know.
Boy, and we mention him a lot on this channel, but Lemons judge Sajeev Mehta, based out of Houston, Texas, is, of course, the resident Malaise-era Ford expert. And every time we get one of these, we always make some comment that's horribly inaccurate. And then Sajeev corrects us in the comments, which we invite everyone to do. But yeah, I don't know what's been showing up, whether it's Fairmonts or Zephyrs or whatever. But I will say, for a while there, we had one of these Zephyrs running in Lemons, and it was super cool. It had big 16-inch steel wheels. It was lowered. It had a nice small block Ford, and it was actually a really cool car. One of those Lemons cars that you could sort of see yourself driving on the street.
Yeah, and the Z7, the Zephyr Z7, which, I mean, how do you even... This is just classic, we don't know what to do with Mercury Ford history right here, but this is basically the Fairmont Futura. It's got the little weird quarter window in the back between the B and kind of C-pillar.
Yeah.
And these came with a 4-cylinder. I think it had a Ford 200 or a small block V8. You could have had any of them in there. I think they maybe later came with a V6. So it's kind of one of those cars that had a bit of everything thrown at it. But man, look at the pinstripe on that.
That's also a very nice detail. It's actually double. There's the one coming off the front fender, and it looks like there's another one sort of trailing off of the back window there.
Yeah, you gotta accent that weird little window.
Yeah.
I think the Lincoln Versailles was built on the Fairmont chassis, but I might be wrong about
Oh
that.
boy, you're inviting the wrath of
I know.
Sajid. Although I will say that I want to say that the Lincoln Versailles is some kind of special axle donor where it's got a 9-inch that has disc brakes or something. Now we're both going to get murdered by Sajid. So
Yeah, Scott Chamberlain, Lemon's judge Scott Chamberlain,
Yes.
owner of the Homer, also a big Fox body guy, would know all of these things. But
and we
this
know
thing-
nothing about Fox bodies, which is why we're hosting this show.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
Again, you get what you pay for, the refund check in the mail.
You sure do. No tracking provided. Okay. Well, I don't know what there is to say about the old Subaru Impreza. Now, this is from the era, I'm sure Subaru fans will also correct us down in the comments, but this is from the era where they were making a WRX, but they weren't selling a WRX in the States, so we just got the terrible one, which I believe is what this is.
Yeah, this is the era where the Impreza, the Mitsubishi Mirage, and the Honda Civic, like if you set them next to each other, you almost couldn't tell them apart. They were all kind of the same amorphous shape.
Right. I will just qualify that by saying that visually you couldn't tell them apart, but I think when it came time for servicing, there was definitely a pecking order with the Honda at the top and the Mitsubishi at the bottom.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. Now, we had one of these at the race. I just did it NOLA, which I don't know when this is actually going to air, but same color, same era. And this is the story for the $500 cars don't exist crowd. This guy saw this car posted for $1,500 for sale, was like, no. Waited about 6 months, got reposted for $1,000. Was still like, nah, I don't think so. Eventually got posted again for $500. He showed up with $300 cash and was about to drive it home, and the owner handed him a gallon of oil and a gallon of transmission fluid. I was like, all right, your problem now. And
good luck, Mr. Falcon. See you later.
That's right. Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go. Yeah, that's definitely from the extreme blown head gasket era, which, as far as I can tell, lasted about 25 years.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on. I realized I went the wrong direction. So back through the Zephyr and on to another very classy automobile.
Man.
Now, this is definitely another one for the how do you get a $500 car. We've had not one but two of these racing Lemons, one of them with a Viper V10. And, it's a Rolls Royce. It's the classic, I cannot believe that is $500. And yet, here, Dr. Old's 01 found one rotting in the junkyard. So these two things cannot be equally true, that a car is too valuable to be a Lemon's car, but not valuable enough to prevent from going in the junkyard.
This is a 77, which is the exact same one that is running in Lemons right now, which probably tells you everything you need to know about late 70s Rolls-Royce quality and desirability as well.
Indeed. I saw one of these, prior to the days of Lemon's car spotting, but I have a photo of one of these in a junkyard in New Orleans. I was there for one of the Lemon's races at NOLA, and walking by some train tracks and behind some chain link fence, there was the Silver Shadow 2. So I don't know.
If you want to own a Rolls Royce, apparently a 77 Shadow 2 is an easy way to do it, and a hard way at the same time. So
here's the irony of this next entry. actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I could be totally wrong, and you're the person that's going to correct me on this. But the first three cars that we've seen, the Zephyr, the Impreza, and the Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow 2, the Camry Wagon is the only one that we haven't seen as a Lemons car. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, that's totally true, actually.
Yeah. So we have seen maybe one or two of this generation Camry. You know, the Camry in general is a relatively and surprisingly rare Lemons entry, based on the fact that they're reliable and the fact that they made 6 trillion of them. Maybe it's because they're all, you know, as opposed to the Rolls-Royce, are actually too valuable to be used as a Lemons car because they actually still operate as regular vehicles.
Yeah, a 25-year-old Camry will still run. I mean, this one still exists. It's still running. It's an example of that.
So when I was working for Excellence Magazine, the unofficial magazine of Porsche, speaking of Instagram entities, the editor there, you know, he was a Porsche nerd, but he also was appreciative of all automobiles, especially unusual ones. And he, out of the blue, asked me, like, well, what's the car that's got double rear window wipers? and I was like, oh, God, it was one of those things where it's like, it was immediately familiar. And I couldn't figure, I was like, oh, God, I like, don't tell me. And like 3 hours later, I was like, Camry Wagon has double rear window wipers, which it does. And then later I realized so does the Cressida Wagon. So a nice feature.
Oh, man, that reminds me. I was driving down one of the main surface streets just outside of Chicago, and I saw rolling up to a stop sign perpendicular to me a Cressida, which I hadn't seen on the street in forever. And then literally on the next block was like an 88 Accord in like mint condition. And I was like, this never happens around Chicago.
Yeah.
So
that is not a Rust Belt phenomenon. And actually, if you look closely at this caption, the poster here, NMS South, so the Accord wagon parked around the corner left before I could get a pic. I think that's another car we haven't seen in Lemons, Accord wagon.
No, we've had one in Arizona. It was a brown, like a bronzish brown one. Did not run very long or very well. But
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about a full size quote unquote wagon like this, from a Lemons car perspective, is the incredible amount of crap you can store in it.
Yes,
during the off season, and then when you're towing it, to the racetrack, just cram it full of stuff.
I thought you were going in that direction because that's exactly what I was going to say. Is you can fit 8 sets of tires and your fuel jugs all in the race car.
Yeah,
can't 100%. Do that with a Fiero. All right. Moving on. Oh, Lordy. So we're back into Lincoln Town, although I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. There's something that seems a little different about this one.
It's the background. It's right. By all the vintage signs. So yeah.
That must be it. Well, this is spectacular. God, I don't know what to say. It's so well executed that I wonder if this is a kit or something that was, like some kind of small volume manufacturer, like a Sportsmobile did it back then.
Yeah. Well, it also speaks to the fact that for a long time, Americans used cars like trucks, and people in Europe still do. Like, you're towing with a Fiat Panda.
Yeah, absolutely.
But this, I don't know. It's kind of great. I assume the cab goes back into the camper.
Yeah, it's hard to make out, but it looks like there's some sort of opening. So that is excellent.
Yeah, imagine rolling up to the campground with that thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Everybody who actually, the hipster who spent $150,000 on a Sprinter would immediately go home. So got that going for it as well.
That's hella sweet.
That's pretty sweet. What the? This is from Immortan Slow, which is a great Instagram handle. God, I got to read the caption. Someone saw fit to permanently park their jalopy in the most inaccessible spot part of Montaña de Oro sometime in the 70s. Also found a lot of leftover World War II amphibious assault training munitions. Well, that sounds exciting. Where in the world is Montaña de Oro?
I assume it's somewhere on the California coast, but maybe the Oregon coast. That's Clint Requa, who Lemons Rally winner with the SSK kit car. He won the first Route 66 rally. He's actually authored a book, I think, on abandoned places in California. So this is
really?
kind of up his
That's
up
right
his
up
alley.
I need that book.
Yeah, super cool dude. He does a lot of gambler stuff, so this might be in Oregon. Yeah, I don't know what that was.
Yeah. This is where you folks in the comments will really come through with your car identifying ability. I was trying to count the cylinders. It appears to be an inline engine of sorts. I can't tell if it's 6 or 8. Almost looks like 8. It looks long to me, but who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, straight 6s back then were also 12 feet long, so
Also true. Yeah,
could be that.
I see the hashtag slow life and slow country. This must be down by San Luis Obispo.
Oh yeah,
I think is where Clint lives. So
yeah. Oh, that makes sense. Maybe Lemons legend Neil Losi knows of this location too. He's also a San Luis Obispo gentleman. All right, well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
let's move on.
Oh baby.
Yeah. Now this is a proper A-Team van. In the world exists a lot of A-Team vans that are based on the wrong brand or wrong generation van. Although, if we're being nitpicky, the one from the show was a GMC and this is a Chevy. But same era, so this gets points for mostly accurate representation of the A-Team van. Although, God, did the A-Team van have Krager 5 spokes on it? I feel like it. No, it had those turbine wheels, the red aftermarket turbine wheels. But other than that, this is pretty good, and it also had the square headlights, I believe.
I do love, and I don't know much about the show version of it, but I mean, this thing has all the hallmarks of like 70s custom vanning. It's got the spoiler, it's got the wind screen shade, it's got the fender flares. I mean, it's missing. I don't know if it's missing anything. I mean, I don't know what the interior looks like. The three pane window also on the side.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty van in there.
Yeah, probably a converted cargo van, and you could just like buy that window a la carte and cut a hole and put it in.
Or the door. Probably.
Yeah, or the entire door. Good point. Yeah. This is from Lutz's Garage 0125. He's out there in New York somewhere, isn't he?
Ontario, yeah. That's
yeah, there it is. Ontario.
Another Lemons Rally guy with a Firebird. He's run a few Lemons Rallies with.
He says this was a trade-in at a Chevy dealership.
Oh.
Can you imagine? I mean, I don't have zero experience with car dealerships, and actually, I'm sure that somebody in the Lemons world works at a car dealership, and that would be fascinating to know what goes on behind the scenes. But generally speaking, your whole point is to sell the new car, and if somebody brings you some terrible piece of crap as a trade-in, you kind of have to take it, and you'll offer them some low ball, and then you have this car that you try to resell. And imagine the poor bastard who was selling whatever he was selling, a Buick Encore, and it's like, well, I need to trade in my van. It is in mint condition. You must give me top dollar for it. The poor salesman had to suck it up and buy an A-Team van.
That's another piece of shtick that a lot of people do on the Lemons rallies. They'll take it to CarMax and get an appraisal on their rally van or car during the event. I think the highest one I've ever seen for a Lemons rally car was like $124 or something like that.
That is an excellent gag and should probably become a regular checkpoint on future Lemons rallies. The other fun thing that's sort of a cousin to that people do on Lemons rallies is take their car into a dealer for dealer service. And it's extra hilarious when it's something like, you know, a Chrysler TC by Maserati, and you take it to the Maserati dealership and like, I need an oil change. Just to get their reaction.
Yeah, I've got a great photo of 2 Lincolns at a Lincoln dealership on a rally as well. I'll have to dig that up. But I feel pretty certain that whoever was trading in like a G20 A-Team van is probably buying like a Chevy Trax or something. You know?
Probably. Yeah. Well, sucks to be that dealer.
Yeah, lemon for a lemon.
Oh, Lord. So, Nissan Altima. This appears to be the special version. What was that? The SER or something, or SR? SER?
SER. Yeah.
Yeah. So, a couple of notes about Nissan Altimas. One of my guilty pleasures is the television show, The First 48, which of course is about the first 48 hours of a murder investigation. And being a car person, I pay a lot of attention to what kind of vehicles are driven by the perpetrators, and like when the cops issue a bolo, what kind of car is it for? And as Eric will tell you, I have sent out any number of GM SUVs. Like, if you're driving a Pontiac Torrent, you're a person of interest in a murder investigation. But by far, the most prevalent vehicle, there's a lot of Chryslers too, I must say. If you're driving any kind of Chrysler product, whether it's a PT Cruiser or a 300 or a Charger, also probably the police are going to want to talk to you about that murder that happened. But if you are an Altima driver, then you might as well just turn yourself in now for all of the multiple murders you have already committed, because by far the most criminal vehicle that I've seen on that show is the Nissan Altima.
There you go. So what you need to do, the takeaway here is you need to find yourself an Altima SER, which I probably has the V6 and a 6-speed.
Yeah.
And theme it up with a first 48 perp theme and bring it to a Lemons race.
Yeah, see, built-in theme ideas. I will also mention that a good buddy of mine bought one of these Altimas of this generation new. It wasn't the SER, but it was the V6 with a manual transmission. And man, that thing, first of all, it had a lot of power for what it was. Second of all, it had tremendous torque steer. Up to that point, I had really only driven the powerful cars that I had driven were all rear drive. I had never driven a really powerful front wheel drive car. And, I drove it, gave it the beans, and all of a sudden was 2 lanes over. And I thought, like, do we have a flat tire? Did an axle blow out? Did I have a seizure? And then it's like, oh, that's torque steer. That's what everybody has been telling me about. So it was famous for that. And it also just disintegrated in several different ways within the first 50,000 miles. Nissan build quality of that time, maybe not the highest.
Hasn't really gotten any better either.
Yeah, indeed. Okay. And
I mean,
first 48 machines.
Strength to strength.
Again, we don't know exactly when these are going to show up on YouTube, but another race that just happened was one of our events at Sonoma. And there was a team with a Grand Prix Pontiac. I don't know if it was a GXP or not, but they had the biggest, most luxurious double stack semi-trailer sized race car hauler that was their support vehicle. And this happens from time to time at Lemons, where something like that will show up and you're like, good Lord, is Lewis Hamilton here? And then the door opens, the elevator comes down, and it's a Grand Prix. So that's always an entertaining thing to have happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of torque steer, this is a GXP, and it's a late GXP, which means it has an LS4 in it, which is it's the LS V8, the same one basically in the Camaro from the same era. So 320 horsepower or something. Front wheel
drive. I thought they only put that in the Bonneville, but then again, my Pontiac knowledge is not super high.
Some of them of this last generation had the LS4. I think it was the last couple of years. There might have been a North Star one also.
Man. So Judge Phil has this idea, which is a great idea that will probably never happen, which is a Lemons rally where everybody has to get some kind of front drive General Motors car, and then we do a tour around Michigan to historical / abandoned General Motors manufacturing sites. And it's just turned into sort of this thing where occasionally we will all collectively go on Craigslist and be like, I'm going to bring this on the rally. I'm going to bring this on the rally. Yeah. And I've decided that I've pretty much got to have a Pontiac because, I mean, look, my name's right in it. And second of all, look at this. I mean, it's luxury and performance all in one. I mean, who needs an M5 when you got a Grand Prix GXP?
Totally good argument right there. I mean, you wouldn't want to be in a Regal. You gotta have this thing.
Yeah. Phil was talking about a Saturn. Come on. I will also point out that in the comments, this is from legit Nigerian businessman. In the comments here, somebody named Darkstrings440 says, have a base 07 if you want it. I am 99% sure that that is just a random guy. Like, it's not a friend of the poster. It's not anything. It's just some dude who is cruising around and like, oh, by the way, I have a free Grand Prix if you want it. So that's another way you can find Lemons cars is, just go online and look for somebody giving one away because that also totally exists.
Totally true.
All right, last car of the week. Oh, baby. It's a Volkswagen Squareback. Oh, man. So what is there to say about the Squareback? It's got a Type 4 pancake air-cooled motor underneath the rear deck. You put your luggage on top and hope it doesn't catch on fire. Pretty cool car. You know, I am old enough to remember, like, people still had these as normal family cars when I was a kid. Not my family. We had a Quantum, because we were upscale. But there were plenty of these still driving around back in the mid-'80s. And then after that, they were all completely gone. But I do remember them.
Yeah, we had one of these in Lemons in Chicago. They'd always run Autobahn, and they finished like 11th overall with it. Like, they beat the crap out of people with this car that had, I don't know, 59 horsepower or something. It's kind of tootled around.
There was the one that was done up sort of like a 911 RS. That was a fastback, though, which is essentially the same car.
Yeah, that one did about 4 laps and never blew up, which kind of shows you the approaches. Because, I mean, the dude with the 911 looking one, he'd fire it up, and it had, like, you could tell it had all of the air-cooled speed parts on it. And, of course, melted down immediately.
Yeah,
and like the
one that had, a factory 51 horsepower just cruised around for the entire weekend.
Yeah, it sounded like a sewing machine. And then you're like, all right, well, that's how you make these things stay alive, and there's a lot of luck involved in that also because they just generally have not been great in Lemons. But yeah.
All right. Well, with that, it's time to pick our award winners. Eric, I believe you have the hooptiest, so you are going first.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that you can get much more hoopty than like 4 rusty parts on a beach. I think that's pretty much the default. I guess if we had to pick something a little more intact, I would probably go with the Zephyr. But yeah, this is kind of a slam dunk. I mean, you literally can't get more hoopty than this.
Yeah, I mean, once you're going back to like, this is Captain Jack Sparrow's old car, then you're in pretty hoopty territory. So I can't disagree with that. God, I had kind of a conflict on the Lemons build. The obvious pick is this, the Lincoln with the camper body on it, but since we kicked off the show with you can't modify the structure of a car too much, I think I'm going to hold off on that. Although I will say, I do think there's a way to make that work. And we have seen, there's the E36 camper that has raced in Lemons. There's a way to retain enough structure or, replace the structure in a car to make it tech worthy. all we ask is that if you're planning to do something like that, email us first. Don't just show up at the race and assume that it's going to be okay.
Right.
We will work with you to make sure that it's safe and legal. So we would love to see something like that, but I can't pick it because there's just too many possible asterisks. Although, look at it. It's so awesome. So I think I'm going to go ahead and go with the dominant 11th place overall finisher at Autobahn, the Volkswagen Squareback. And according to the poster here, the Mr. Noam Levine, the Lemons logo is blocking, but you can get the gist. It says been sitting for. Something tells me the next word isn't a day or an hour. I think it's a longer period of time than that. So, but it looks pretty clean. It looks 100% intact. Air-cooled parts are reasonably cheap. Speed is not going to be your goal with something like this, but that's okay. We've got plenty of awards and appreciation for cars that are not speedy in Lemons. So I think this is going to be the Lemons pick.
Yeah, bonus points. We talked about the Camry having storage room inside. This has that and a luggage rack and a frunk. So you got plenty of room to store crap in it too.
Yeah, and as being an old car, it always has somewhat of a leg up on being in contention for the higher awards, including our grand prize, the Index of Effluency, which of course goes to the worst car that does the best. So yeah, there you go. So Eric, how do people post their photos to be featured on this fine program?
Sure. So you would go to Instagram. You would open your Instagram account. Once you've taken a photo of some crap can you've seen on the street or in a junkyard or wherever you happen to be out and about, and you're going to write a little caption, just like this person has done. And then there's that hashtag, which is the old pound sign from your old telephone, if you remember the such things. And you're going to write Lemons Car Spotting, all one word, and we will find that hashtag and we will put the cars into a database and we'll pull them out and make fun of them. And there you go.
That's it. So that'll do it for this week. And we do these weekly. So we'll see you next. Oh, man. Somehow, I'm probably totally wrong about this, but somehow the Squareback, I feel like, is mechanically more reliable than the Type 1 vehicles that preceded it and the 411 that succeeded it. But could be totally wrong.
Probably totally wrong.